Super Smash Shows! Welcome to Super Smash Shows. The rules are simple. I pick 3 shows connected by a theme. I watch the first episode of each show, and then cruelly force them to fight in a battle royal. There can be only one winner, the show I would be most likely to continue watching. Usually we take a look at 3 animated series, but this time it's tokusatsu, Japanese live-action television that combines practical and special effects, usually to tell a sci-fi or horror story. Examples of this genre include the Godzilla movies, Kyoryu Sentai Zyuranger, which became Power Rangers, and of course, Kamen Rider. Because it's the 50th anniversary of Kamen Rider, we're doing something very special this time. We'll be watching the first Kamen Rider episode of each Japanese era. Showa era's Kamen Rider, Heisei era's Kamen Rider Kuuga, and Reiwa era's Kamen Rider 01. This is my first time watching any of these series, so I have no idea what to expect. But I know one thing for sure. This is going to be a difficult battle to call. So without further ado,
get ready for the next battle.
Kamen Rider! Show number 1 is the original Kamen Rider. This episode aired on the 3rd of April 1971 and is now officially 50 years old. But before we can begin with Kamen Rider, we must do as the hero does and transform. Henshin! Oh, come on. What? We can't afford a special effect? Titled The Eerie Spider-Man, this episode focuses on Kamen Rider Takeshi Hongo's origin story, along with featuring the first monster of the week, the titular Spider-Man. No relation to Marvel's Spider-Man, though he did have a tokusatsu version named Spider-Man, oddly enough. Let's watch Kamen Rider. The episode starts with an amazing theme song. This is amazing! I can see why this was so popular when it first came out, because it's so unlike anything else that was on Japanese TV at the time. This is so charming! After the opening song, Spider-Man watches from a distance, as our lead, Takeshi Hongo, practices for an upcoming race with the help of his friend and mentor, Tobei Tachibana. Not long after starting another lap, Hongo is kidnapped by a bunch of mysterious people, under the control of the Spider-Man. Are they challenging me? Are you challenging me? You know, this is gonna sound weird, but in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, you can do the bunny hop on the BMX. It always felt weird to me that you could never do the bunny hop on the motorcycle, despite the fact that's obviously impossible in real life. He just did the bunny hop on the motorcycle. Bravo! Oh no! I've been caught in a tiny net. Ooh. Fishnet stockings. Captured and tied up, Hongo learns that his captors are the Shocker organization, who are kidnapping people and converting them into super powerful cyborgs to become their ruthless soldiers. Look at these guys. Oh my god. Shoka. I love this visual. Buy this perfectly good globe and then just pour red paint over it. Shoka. Brain modification. That's COVID-19 vaccine number 2. The brain modification. Hongo manages to escape, thanks to the help of his friend Professor Midorikawa, who has been captured by Shocker and forced to work with them under threat of his daughter coming to harm. Shocker. Luckily, there was a handy motorcycle nearby that Grandad and I could ride home on. I know that's meant to be creepy, but I'm just like, yeah, go ahead, hug me. Hongo discovers his powers and uses them to face off with Spider-Man's goons and get Midorikawa to safety. So cool! Epic. Epic. Epic! An attempt is made to kidnap Midorikawa's daughter Ruriko to bring the professor back out of hiding, but she drives out to meet her father in secret, unaware of the tracking spider attached to the window. This thing is amazing, honestly. What a nice looking set. I'd go there for a coffee. Tracking spider. Tracking spider. Tracking spider. Whoa, what a line. This inhuman body has already stolen my humanity. Oh! Ruriko reaches her father just in time to see him die, and mistakenly believes Hongo to be the killer. These special effects are like watching a cheesy Italian horror movie. I am loving every second of this. Wow! That was impressive! For 71, that was impressive. While trying to convince Ruriko of his innocence, Hongo finds himself having to rescue her from the clutches of Spider-Man. This is so well done! I'm amazed by this. There was probably nothing on Japanese TV like this at the time. Kamen Rider! Rider! Kick! Rider! Punch! Rider! DMCA! This is so epic. That's so cool. This might be the most amazing thing I have ever seen. After a grueling battle, Hongo calls his friend Tachibana to take Ruriko back home. Hongo must come to terms with his new, frightening powers and find some way to clear things up with Ruriko, who still blames him for her father's death. A very pleasing origin story, moving forward in a clearly defined way. We see firsthand the terrifying strength of the Shocker organization, and our lead has many close calls during the fight. Despite the effects having aged somewhat poorly, I had no difficulty suspending my disbelief. I loved every minute of it. Amazing. Absolutely and utterly incredible. Wow! I love it. Where have you been all my life, Kamen Rider? Where have you been all my life? Holy shit! Blu-rays when? Come on, Toei. Blu-rays when? I've tried to watch Tokusatsu before, but all the shows I've tried did not have a hook like this one did. I can see why this series is so popular. I am every bit as absorbed by this show as some young child in 1971 watching this for the first time would have been. Where has this been all my life? Wow. Kamen Rider Kuuga. Show number 2 is Kamen Rider Kuuga. This is the 10th season of Kamen Rider, and the first one to air in the Heisei era. The first episode, Fukatsu, meaning resurrection, aired on January 30th, 2000. The series is considered a reboot of Kamen Rider, and was the first new season in 11 years, after Black RX ended in 1989. We start with a dark, dusty temple scene in black and white. It appears to be some sort of flashback, featuring our main Kamen Rider, Kuuga, fighting enemies. He appears to enter a sarcophagus, and is buried.
What? There's so much happening and none of it makes sense.
We then get our opening song.
I played a little bit of Kamen Rider Batch Ride War Genesis, which features the first episodes or origin stories of each of the riders. I have played the Kamen Rider Kuuga battle stage in that game, so I know that the opening episode should feature a fight in a church.
The way this episode is told, we get lots of events over the course of 2 separate days, indicated by the time and location they take place. Rather than present them as they happen, I'll go over the main gist. Archaeologists uncover the sarcophagus containing Kuuga.
They've opened the hyperlock chamber and now Ivan Ooze is free.
But upon opening it, release a curse of death as shadowy figures attack them.
If this is our hero, if this is our rider, oh.
Our main character Yusuke and his friend Sakurako investigate, discovering that runes from the scene warn of this very thing.
When a girl asks you if you want coffee, you say yes. So there was a curse on that tomb.
A blue light appears at the dig site, and there is an incredible amount of damage to the area.
What? Professional dream chaser.
A belt is recovered from the ruins by police detective Kaoru, who then asks Sakurako to study the belt.
Oh, just leaving him with the henshin belt.
The city is attacked by a spider-like villain. Another one.
Where it's a practical effect like this, it looks great. Where it's a gunshot or he's pulling the person up into the spiderweb, it looks awful.
And Yusuke has no choice but to put the belt on and become the Kamen Rider Kuuga.
The transformation looked weird. That looked pretty good, I must say.
An elaborate fight scene happens, including a brawl inside of a helicopter, and the monster is forced to retreat.
Oh, that's a good shot. Oh, God. Oh, man. This is really ridiculous.
Now that the belt has merged with Yusuke's body, he's the new Kamen Rider Kuuga, and must fight these bizarre, historical monsters that are searching for his power. This is a revival of Kamen Rider that rewrites many of the franchise's rules and concepts to create something new and refreshing. It had been a decade since the last show, so every attempt was made to separate Kuuga from its predecessors. Thematically, visually, and from a writing standpoint, everything is different. A sense of humor has also been injected. It is the breath of fresh air that Kamen Rider needed at the time.
Well, this one was interesting. It was interesting. The special effects are year 2000 special effects. So yeah, Kamen Rider Kuuga. Okay.
Kamen Rider 01. Show number 3 is Kamen Rider 01. Being the first episode of the Reiwa era, it once again looks to revive or reboot the series, with the 0 in the title being an obvious clue into this. How someone might refer to a show's first episode as Episode 01, this is Kamen Rider 01, Episode 01. Just rolls off the tongue. The episode's name is I Am the President and a Kamen Rider, which is pretty much just a recap of the episode.
Let's see what difference an era makes.
01 starts by introducing the omnipresent Hidden Intelligence, what a god-awful pun, who have developed the Humor Gears, robots with a human appearance that are controlled by an AI and have their own free will.
Artificial intelligence, AI. How very topical. An AI-enabled human robot. Humor Gear. Alright, you can paint a real... paint a real body onto it. And they're available everywhere, right? So... it's like The Simpsons. You can thaw me out now that robot wives are cheap and effective.
They proved to be very popular, and now Humor Gears live among humans, you know, like replicants in Blade Runner or whatever.
Died at the age of 75. His female sex droid clamped down too hard.
Our lead, Aruto, is running late for his job as a comedian at a local amusement park.
So my experience with 01 is basically just his appearance in Memory of Heroes. So he turned up, told some crappy jokes, and that was basically it. Right, so our main character, Mr. 01, he's a comedian. You can tell he's a comedian because he's wearing one of those gaudy 80s Japanese comedian jackets with the shiny sequins and shit.
His jokes are abysmal, and he is subsequently fired, with his position taken by some bodybuilding humor gear with equally shitty jokes.
He's fired! He got fired. And a robot has his job? Well, hold on. Robots are literally taking people's jobs! How am I meant to feel about humor gears? Am I meant to see them as robots, or am I meant to see them as people? That's an interesting philosophical question, isn't it?
As Aruto is feeling down in the dumps, a female humor gear named Izu turns up in a car and whisks him away to the Hidden Intelligence HQ.
Hello.
Turns out Izu is the former secretary of the late company president, and Aruto is the grandson.
Weird guy gets handed will to read of his late grandfather.
He is to be given the role of president, along with a special piece of futuristic equipment.
Aruto! Yes! He's not very happy.
Aruto turns the position and technology down, because he only wants people to laugh and smile. He's not into this whole secret corporation scene.
He turned down requests from his dead grandfather. He turned down millions and billions and quadrillions of yen.
Meanwhile, some bad guys are engaging in a plan to make the human race extinct, saying something about a singularity that was used to power the Humor Gear AI, and that with their abilities, they could take over and wipe out the human race for good. The bodybuilding Humor Gear is corrupted and turned into a villainous robot.
Wow! Is this because I fired Aruto? Did you do this, Aruto? He looks like Japanese Michael Rosen.
Aruto is once again offered the futuristic technology and puts it on, becoming Kamen Rider 01.
That's so cool! So cool!
A brilliant fight scene commences, and 01 saves the day.
The visual effects look good. No! Okay. I'm not believing this at all, but it's so cool regardless. You press the stop button! Oh dear. So cool! Yeah, I remember that move. I've used that a few times in Memory of Heroes. I haven't learned how to stick the landing yet.
Aruto accepts his responsibilities as the new president of Hidden Intelligence, but not without resistance from Vice President Jun, who feels robbed of the position. 01 is a refreshing take on Kamen Rider, with its wisecracking lead teamed up with an inquisitive android. The suit looks fantastic, and the visual effects work great. 01 is the best looking show, but looks aren't everything, as we reiterate every single episode.
Wow. This is going to be a really difficult winner to pick. I have a genuine challenge on my hands this time. Oh boy! Well, I'd better get started.
Battle Royal! 3 seasons of Kamen Rider. No. 3 eras of Kamen Rider. But only one can be the winner. Who's taking a rider kick to the balls? Who's taking a rider punch to the face? Who's riding all the way to the finish? And whose underwear is riding all the way up their ass? Let's find out. Normally we sort of take a look at each show separately, but I'm going to try something a little different here. We'll compare each element of all 3 shows at the same time and try to piece together a case for the winner, because honestly, I just kind of want to watch every Kamen Rider series at this point, and it would make sense to watch them in the order they aired. But for the sake of making this a fair game, let's, gamify this. Riders. Takeshi Hongo, the Kamen Rider. Age undeclared, but with an unrealistically high IQ of 600, and being in a peak state of physical fitness, he is chosen by Showa as the perfect candidate for their cyborg trials. His power comes not from his suit, so the reason for wearing it is not necessarily known at this time. If it's to hide his identity, he would have no need to wear it when escaping Shoka's hideout, nor would he have had time to procure one. So is it a transformation or just a suit? Jury's out. Yusuke Hodai, age not revealed to us, a free spirit who travels the world, was once stranded in Nepal on the peak of Annapurna at the age of 8. A man who craves excitement and, at the most important moment, answers the call to become Kamen Rider Kuuga. His cheerful personality is in complete contrast to Takeshi Hongo's unfaltering seriousness. Yusuke believes that people who can smile through hardships are the coolest people around, and I can't help but agree. Once he puts on the Kuuga belt, it merges with his body, making his transformation permanent, like Hongo's. Aruto Hiden has one goal: to make people happy. This 22-year-old, revealed to us by Izu's facial recognition scan, is interested in protecting the laughs of others, to the point where his own well-being and safety is of far less importance to him than protecting the laughter of the people he doesn't even know. I absolutely relate to this, by the way. The traditional Japanese man's-eye funny man, with his garish jacket, has a Kato and Ken vibe that's so retro-historic. His Kamen Rider form, 01, is a suit that can be activated and deactivated on a whim, being the only rider on this episode whose transformation is temporary. If I were to rate these 3 riders on their design, of course Hongo's suit is the most iconic. Resembling the Skullman character that directly inspired his appearance, the suit has big red bug eyes and antennae. Kuuga employs a more stag beetle-esque appearance with horns, but 01 emulates the classic Kamen Rider style, being a grasshopper with iconic large eyes and antennae. The abs on Hongo's suit exemplify his physical strength, so on account of that, I've got to give the point to Hongo here. 01's a close call though, but really, the iconic Kamen Rider design is just an absolute work of art, honestly. Story. All 3 of these seasons provide us with an origin story for each rider, telling us how they obtained their powers. Hongo is the subject of experimentation. Yusuke tries on an ancient artifact, and Arato receives his powers as a hand-me-down present from his deceased grandfather. Real talk here, Arato's origin story is definitely the weakest, in the sense that without his late grandfather's wholesome and incredible gift, Arato would still be a struggling comedian in a world where robots have taken all the best jobs. While his episode shows us a traumatic experience from his past, one he has tried so desperately to cover up, it doesn't tell us much about him and his dreams and aspirations, though it does drum into our heads how important his dreams are to him. Would be great if they shared just a little bit more of that with us. Yusuke's got an air of mystery and mischievousness to him, which is fun to explore. And ancient evils and historical aliens have always been a point of fascination for me. You know, how many things in ancient scripture that seem to mirror modern day inventions? It really makes you think. I hope Kuuga explores that, because it has the perfect playground to do it. Yusuke gains his powers through his belt, but it's never really implied what or where those powers came from, other than, you know, a sarcophagus. Hongo's backstory though, we're given so little and yet so much. He's already the peak perfect man, enhanced with cyborg technology. And he breaks free to use those powers against the ones that gave those abilities to him. A man of purity and wisdom, turning against his captors. A revenge story is always so intensely gripping. That's why we eat up trash movies and television with a good, simple revenge plot. Kamen Rider comes from a time when that was enough to carry the story, and for me that's got to stand for something against the others. That's 2 points for Kamen Rider so far. Special effects. Tokusatsu stands for special filming, and studios pride themselves on their special effects. Kamen Rider's special effects are mostly created through slowed down or sped up photography, color changing, and fades. Occasionally the film is drawn over, like the infamous scene from the end of the original Highlander. Yeah, everything in Kamen Rider's day had to be done by hand. And yet, I managed to suspend my disbelief throughout. And if I can do that 50 years on, I'm sure Japanese audiences had no trouble doing it back in 1971. These practical effects did come with a caveat. Hiroshi Fujioka shattered his leg during the filming of the original Kamen Rider TV show, which forced the writers to introduce a second Kamen Rider early on. 01's effects are phenomenal. Apart from a few rough shots, most of this show visually gels. The suit and effects look fantastic, and to give off the illusion of speed, they go for motion blur rather than speeding up the film. Shockwaves and environmental damage are absolutely convincing. But given that this is the most recent show, beginning airing in September of 2019, you would expect the visuals to hold up well. Clearly shot in HD, looks absolutely gorgeous. Most of the compositing was done so well I barely even noticed. If I saw the camera raws for this series, I would probably be blown aback by how much of this was really composited as opposed to filmed in a real location. Kuuga's visuals do not hold up. Resizing a clip does not give the illusion of something travelling backwards, instead it's just a shrinking billboard effect. A lot of the compositing is rough, but I'll give it something of a free pass considering this was 2000, and Kamen Rider needed to do something new to differentiate itself from the Showa era seasons. There was one shot I did appreciate though, a single take of just practical fighting effects, and a taste of what Kuuga could have achieved if it wasn't so dead set on using VFX as much as possible. Kuuga has some very nice looking props though. Giving the point to 01, but I was so very close to giving the point to the original Kamen Rider just for this absurdly wonderful body dissolving effect. Poor Professor Midorikawa. He didn't deserve such a gratuitous death. Well, the numbers don't lie. 2 points for classic Kamen Rider, 1 point for 01, and no points for Kuuga. But do the numbers really represent how I truly feel about the episodes we viewed together? I would absolutely watch all 3 of these shows. I plan to watch all 3 of these shows. But which do I most wish to continue? This was the toughest choice I've ever had to make on this show. I can be, and often am, wrong. I'm not overly confident in this, but I think I'm ready to give my verdict. And the winner is... Kamen Rider 01! And considering I'm planning to watch these shows in order, it seems I'll be waiting for a while. But they say delayed gratification is the best kind. Picking a winner was honestly impossible. I ummed and ahed for a day, weighing up the pros and cons, but there's something, just something, about the purity of Arato's character that shines through. I did a bit of reading up on the actor, Fumiya Takahashi. He's a chef in real life. Yeah, he runs a cooking blog and has said in interviews that he cooks to make everyone happy, which seeps into the portrayal of his Arato character. He's not a hard-ass serious man like Hongo, and he's not a go-with-the-flow journeyman like Yusuke. Arato just seems like a more fun character to be around, and that's important in a long show. We could always do with a good look at what makes us human. Humagears, are they robots or are they people? Can a humagear be more human than a real human? Are machines inherently good? It's time to get all Asimov here in this joint. The first law of robotics says that a robot may not injure a human, and yet the humagears are corrupted into breaking those laws. Are they truly robots then, or something else? If a humagear transcends robot status and becomes human, can they then break the first law of robotics? If 01 doesn't explore this concept, they miss out on an absolute god-tier opportunity. While I was writing the script, I just caught wind of some great news about 01. Shout Factory will be releasing the show on Blu-ray in North America. This is not a fucking drill. Not just a streaming option, though that will be available, but an actual physical media release on Blu-ray. Well, I know what I'm saving up for. So which would you have crowned the winner? The original Kamen Rider, the show that started a franchise of 50 years strong. Kuuga, the show that brought Kamen Rider into a new era with themes of old meets new. Or 01, and its sci-fi premise of an optimistic, technological future turned bleak? Let me know in the comments. Also, this episode's theme was Kamen Rider, but do you think you could suggest a better one? Drop that in the comments too, or share your suggestion on the Flagrant Weeaboo Discord. This has been ReelAsia. You've been watching Super Smash Shows, and this was the hardest pick I've ever had to make on this show. Never before have I been presented with 3 incredible episodes. If you can forgive my choice, then I'll look forward to seeing you next time.